February 9th, 2016. We will have an invocation by Pastor Mark Wilson from the First Church of God. Afterwards, please stay standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Mayor, Commissioners, thank you for this opportunity. Will you pray with me? Our Father God, we thank you for all that we have here in this city, the city of Coffeyville. We thank you that your love reached out to us, Lord. You gave your life for us. And tonight I pray that all the business that is handled here would be in consideration that you are in the room, Lord, that you are here and you care about our community, that you give us the opportunity to reach out to so many people in your love. Tomorrow starts the season of Lent, and I pray as we walk through this valley of death, Lord, that we will see the birth and the newness that you have given us all around us. And I thank you, Lord, for your anointing, your blessing in this room on each commissioner, mayor, all the leaders of this community. And we thank you for that in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Pastor Wilson. All right, we will now review the consent agenda, which includes the City Commission meeting minutes for Tuesday, January 22nd, 2016, and the City Commission special meeting minutes from Thursday, February 4th, 2016. Are there any questions or changes to those minutes? All right, we were also, for the 2015 appropriation ordinance number AO1526 in the amount of $384,170.49, and the 2016 appropriation ordinance number AO1603 in the amount of $11,195,002.69. Are there any questions or changes to the appropriation ordinances? All right, I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Motion was made by Mayor Powell and seconded by Commissioner Martin to approve the consent agenda as presented. Commissioner Williams.
Aye.
Commissioner Martin.
Aye.
Commissioner Taylor.
Aye.
Commissioner Castler.
Aye.
Mayor Powell.
Aye. All right, moving on to the regular agenda items. We are going to have a public hearing for the Neighborhood Stabilization Program closeout. Susan Gailmore with the Southeast Kansas Regional Planning will make comments.
Good evening. You guys are having a public hearing this evening to close out, finally, the Neighborhood Stabilization Grant. You guys were awarded this back in, I think it was '09, when they initially established some program money for the stimulus, and you guys were initially awarded a grant to purchase, rehabilitate, and dispose of 2 abandoned and foreclosed properties. You did the 2 properties, and then about halfway through, you guys received an additional allotment to also do some redevelopment activities, and so you guys were able to actually construct 2 new houses, one on 5th Street and one on 4th Street. And those have now been successfully completed and sold, and so we can now officially close out the project. So you're just required to have a public hearing and ask if anybody has any comments, and then we can be on our merry way.
Are there any questions? All right, I'm going to open the public hearing now. If anybody has any comments or questions, now would be the time to address those. All right, seeing none, we're going to close the public hearing. Thank you, Susan. Now is the section for comments from the public. The public is free to comment on items that are not listed on this agenda. Public participation is welcome and encouraged for all items on the agenda as the topics are discussed. Please address comments to the commission as a body and be mindful of others who may also wish to speak, and your comments should be limited to 3 minutes. All right. We will now move on to old business, starting with ordinance number G1601, a second reading of an ordinance to amend court costs for the municipal court. Don't believe there's any changes from the first reading. Okay. Any questions? Motion? I will move to approve the ordinance for G1601 for adoption.
I'll second it.
Who seconded?
I will.
Motion was made by Mayor Powell and seconded by Commissioner Taylor to approve ordinance number G-16-01 for adoption. Commissioner Martin.
Aye.
Commissioner Castler.
Aye.
Commissioner Williams.
Aye.
Mayor Powell.
Aye.
Commissioner Taylor.
Aye.
All right. Charter ordinance number 27 is a second reading of Charter ordinance number 27 to exempt the city of Coffeyville from provisions relating to the city manager form of government. City Attorney Paul Kreitz will make comments.
And the reason I'm making comments, Mayor and Commissioners, is there has been a slight change, one that I would consider to be more of a form change than a substantive change that I set out in the memo that I think is a part of your agenda packet. We had included in the first draft of this that newly elected commissioners would take positions on the second Tuesday of the month rather than the second Monday as provided in House Bill 2104 in order to coincide with our meetings. We had a kind of an internal debate, and then I checked with some colleagues to get their thinking on whether we could charter out of that specific provision. The opinions were sort of mixed, and I think in abundance of caution we decided that we should go directly with the House bill verbiage, which says that the newly elected commissioners would take their seats, that they would take office on the second Monday of January as opposed to the second Tuesday. As I've said in my memo to you all, in order to address a temporary vacancy, it was suggested to me that the newly elected commissioners take their oaths outside of the meeting sometime between the election and the second Monday in January. That way there would be no additional formalities required in the new commissioners to officially be commissioners before that second Monday, and they'd be able to take office. They'd be officers of the city before the first meeting. We'd still have maybe a ceremony where the newly elected commissioners would, I don't know, in some ceremonial way take their seats on the second Tuesday, but technically they would be commissioners as of the second Monday in order to comply with House Bill 2104. Sorry for the rambling, but that's...
So they're going to, so Monday they start and just, they don't...
The second Monday they could technically take their oath.
So then they have to just wait a day to be seated then?
Yeah, in a ceremonial way. I suppose if there was some emergency, a special meeting could be called and those commissioners could actually assume that position as a commissioner before that second Tuesday. This isn't going to happen very often, but I think it actually does happen is it next year? It's whenever the first Tuesday, whenever the
January starts on a Tuesday.
Yeah, whenever January starts on a Tuesday, you're going to run into this problem where there could be this 8-day void.
Well, you guys will let us know, we'll get it done.
Where you need to be,
Yes.
that's right.
It's really an academic thing, but in order to comply with House Bill 2104, we think it's probably better to go with this verbiage.
Any additional questions? I will move to approve Charter ordinance number 27 for adoption.
I'll second it. I'll second it, Cindy.
Motion was made by Mayor Powell and seconded by Commissioner Taylor to approve Charter ordinance number 27 for adoption. Commissioner Martin.
Aye.
Commissioner Castler.
No.
Mayor Powell.
Aye.
Commissioner Williams.
Aye.
Commissioner Taylor.
Aye.
All right, we'll now move on to new business. Discussion and action to approve a cereal malt beverage license for Siletto Lindo at 228 West 9th Street. City Clerk Cindy Price will make comments.
Mayor and Commissioners, Silito Lindo has a new owner, so they needed to apply for a cereal malt beverage license. I don't know that they're here. They were aware of the meeting tonight, but I don't see them. They do meet all of the requirements as set out by state statute for a cereal malt beverage license.
All right. Are there any questions? No. Motion? I will move to approve the cereal malt beverage license for Siletto Lindo at 228 West 9th.
Second.
Motion was made by Mayor Powell and seconded by Commissioner Castler to approve a cereal malt beverage license for Silito Lindo at 228 West 9th Street. Mayor Powell.
Aye.
Commissioner Martin.
Aye.
Commissioner Williams.
Aye.
Commissioner Castler.
Aye.
Commissioner Taylor.
Aye.
Resolution number R1628, a resolution to execute a construction contract with Nowak Construction Company for a water main replacement project. Public Works Director Chuck Shively will make comments.
Mayor, Commissioners, as you know, the City of Coffeyville has received two separate CDBG grants from the Department of Commerce for totaling $750,000 for replacement of the street and sidewalks, driveway entrances, and curb and gutter on 9th Street from Camden Street to Hall Street. We also discussed in previous City Commission meetings that prior to all that work, we needed to replace the water line on 9th Street and relocate it behind the curb. So City Crews had already replaced the water line from Willow Street to Harding Street, leaving Harding Street to Hall Street that remained to be replaced. So we drew up the plans and specifications, and the project was advertised for bids on January 14th. Plans were sent to 8 contractors and 3 plan rooms. When bids were opened on January 28th, only 2 bids were received. Both bids were higher than the engineer's estimate. So city staff and our engineer began negotiations with the low bidder, Nowak Construction, to see what could be done to reduce the bid amount. The outcome of the negotiation reduced Nowak's bid by $140,550.80. Items that were modified include eliminating all pavement patchwork, since the other contractors will be following right along, and we'll do that anyway. Allowing for PVC pipe rather than the high-density polyethylene pipe, and increasing the number of construction days allowed. So for a cost savings of more than $140,000, all of those proposed changes are acceptable to staff. So I recommend that the Commission approve the resolution authorizing execution of a construction contract with Nowak Construction Company Incorporated in the amount of $425,020.20. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
What's the difference in lifespan of PVC over the high density?
I don't think there's a big difference.
It's just the type of how the pipe is put together.
Yeah. The high density is butt welded, and heat and PVC is pushed together.
Any additional questions? All right, I will move to approve resolution R1628 for adoption.
Motion was made by Mayor Powell and seconded by Commissioner Martin to approve resolution number R-16-28 for adoption. Commissioner Castler.
Aye.
Commissioner Williams.
Aye.
Commissioner Martin.
Aye.
Mayor Powell.
Aye.
Commissioner Taylor.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chuck. Resolution R1629, a resolution to execute change order number 1, motor control centers with Gex Pro for the electric utility. Electric Utility Deputy Director Mike Shook will make comments.
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. As you stated, this is an additional change order with Gex Pro for the motor control centers for the new generation project. During engineering submittal review by Gexpro, it was discovered that we would need 2 additional 480-volt breakers for the project. Burns McDonnell have reviewed the change order. They approved, therefore staff recommends the approval and authorization of change order number 01 to Gexpro in the amount of $4,260 to add 2 additional 480-volt breakers for the electric utility. I'd be happy to try to answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions?
Yep.
Motion?
I'll make a motion to approve. Resolution R-1629.
Second.
Motion was made by Commissioner Taylor and seconded by Commissioner Martin to approve resolution number R-16-29 for adoption. Commissioner Taylor.
Aye.
Mayor Powell.
Aye.
Commissioner Castler.
Aye.
Commissioner Williams.
Aye.
Commissioner Martin.
Aye.
All right, resolution number R-1630, a resolution to execute change order number 3, site preparation with UCI Incorporated for the electric utility. Mike Shook will make comments.
Mayor, Commissioners, this change order actually represents several change orders for the site prep contract on a new generation facility. Of these series of change orders, there is actually a deductive change order of over $30,000, but the end balance is a change order in the amount of $7,484.26. We've changed some of the laydown area, changed some of the areas where we've got rock, where we're going to end up when the project's done. We're going to go back to grass. That's changed, as you can see with the attachments in your report, changing some seeding, some dirt areas, stuff like that. Therefore, staff does recommend a change order with UCI for site prep in the amount of $7,484.26. And I'd be happy to answer any questions on this item.
No questions.
No questions? All right, I will move to approve resolution R-1630 for adoption.
Second.
Motion was made by Mayor Powell and seconded by Commissioner Martin to approve resolution number R-16-30 for adoption. Commissioner Williams.
Aye.
Mayor Powell.
Aye.
Commissioner Martin.
Aye.
Commissioner Taylor.
Aye.
Commissioner Castler.
Aye.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
We will now move to ordinance number S-16-02, a first reading of an ordinance to approve the annual renewal of the 10-year tax abatement incentive for for-state maintenance. Assistant to the City Manager, Tricia Perdun, will make comments.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. In 2008, the city was informed that For-State Maintenance Supply was interested in expanding their facility, but was interested in expanding their facility in another metropolitan community. We informed them that we have an abatement process that they'd be eligible for with this expansion. The exemption is only for a 10,000 square foot addition to the existing For-State warehouse located at 503 North Klein. This is year 7 of their current tax abatement that they received in 2008 and was approved by the Kansas Board of Tax Appeals in 2009 when the final approval was completed. The city is required to provide renewal documentation of all open tax exemptions to the county appraiser on an annual basis by March 1st. According to the city's policy and procedures on ad valorem property taxes, tax exemptions, and incentives for economic development, there are 4 categories that we review according to the initial application and according to that policy. These are jobs, wages, annual sales, and local purchases. Last year in years past, there was some confusion on this. We went to the Kansas Department of Commerce and the Kansas Board of Tax Appeals to get that clarified last year, and they made sure that we understood those were the 4 projections that we should be evaluating. And that is up to, the weighted value of those is up to the local government to determine. This abatement, again, is only on the incremental taxes that have been generated by the expansion. For state maintenance continues to pay real and personal property taxes on the buildings and equipment that existed before this expansion in 2009. I'll quickly go over the 4 criteria. First is jobs. One of the things that we learned last year from the Kansas Board of Tax Appeals and got clarification from the Department of Commerce on, and specifically because they are an interstate commerce company versus a manufacturing company, which is typically what we've approved in the past for these abatements. They really stressed that they're only required to create 1 job. This year, for state maintenance turned in their report that they have 35 employees in 2015 versus 30 that they listed in 2008. So according to that, they meet the state statute of at least 1 job being created. Due to the expansion of services into the hardwood floor refinishing business and other opportunities, they are looking to grow in the next few years as well. Second is wages. The average salary of a 4-state maintenance employee does exceed the median wage for the city of Coffeyville. The median wage is $31,000, and they average $36,794 with an average hourly wage of $17.69. Third is annual sales. Although it's not been factored into the annual renewal in years past, 13 and before, this was a factor that, again, the Kansas Board of Tax Appeals recommended that we really look at, especially since they are an interstate commerce company versus a manufacturing company. We gathered this information last year and this year, and they provided the information historically all the way to 2008 to make sure that they were still meeting those projections in the past. They have grown steadily over the abatement period. Their annual gross sales were over $6 million in 2015 and about $8,000 more than the year prior. The last is local purchases, which are subject to local sales tax. These are purchases that local companies make, and the sales tax directly comes back to Coffeyville. The estimates that they projected in their initial application in 2008, they believed in 2015 would be about $52,000. They believe that was probably about the cost of buying new trucks for their business. However, this year, in 2015, their local sales tax was actually $229,000, which generated $6,897 in local sales taxes for the city of Coffeyville.
How much was it? 6,000 what? I'm sorry.
$6,897. So about 75% of what their tax abatement is, they already generated just in our local sales tax. One of the additional things we added to kind of align with our economic development incentive guidelines, which really focuses on the impact that jobs have on our local sales tax. That additional money, if you take 35 employees, according to the Kansas Department of Labor calculations that we can provide and we use for all incentives now, that adds another $13,000 in local sales tax to the city of Coffeyville. So they more than cover the tax abatement of $9,500. Overall in taxes, total tax exempted for the new addition have been $62,488 since 2008. They continue to pay their taxes on the rest of the property this entire period. Our tax exemption policy is written such that the initial 3 years of the exemption are abated 100%, and remaining years are exempted at $1,000 per job, but should be adjusted by the governing body as a result of the annual review. Again, that policy was written probably with the manufacturing businesses in mind, and the Kansas Board of Tax Appeals really suggested that we look at all 4 factors when evaluating this. It's staff's recommendation based on primarily the sales tax alone that's generated by this company that the sales tax or that the tax abatement is approved. I'm open for questions.
What did we do last year?
Last year you recommended 75%.
Okay. And how much job growth has been from last year to this year?
Last year, they reported 29, and this year they're at 35.
Thank you. Any other questions?
I've got some. Anybody else got any?
Depends on what you say. Go ahead.
Okay. Trish, to go back to the sales tax, as you know, we met out there at Forest State today, had a few questions.
Yes.
We'd also met with him a few months ago to talk about this. I want to say this is kind of a tough one. I generally don't spend 2.5 hours on something, like this, but I knew there's a lot of people, I want to say to the public, there's a lot of people that are really looking at this, okay? And it was a very debated topic last year. I can remember our mayor last year saying, I'm going to vote for this, but I'm struggling with it. And he said, next year, we got to meet the numbers. I'd like to know I wish I'd had time to talk to Jim more than I did about that. But to meet the numbers from last year, do you remember, and can the city staff bring up anything about what they mean by meet the numbers? What Jim said and the commissioners last year, I was sitting here, they said, next year, if we don't meet the numbers, it's going to be a problem.
Right. Last year, as Marcus referred to, or Commissioner Castler referred to, sorry, they were at 29. Originally, they had 30 jobs listed on their application. So due to the numbers they reported last year, they were at a loss of 1. They had some turnover, and so that was why. This year, they are at 35, originally at 30, so they've increased. The wages are still above, so they meet at this time. The sales tax is above, so they met at that one, and their local sales tax is also above their projection. So they met all 4 this year.
Okay, Trish. Well, one of the things we discovered when we were out there today, that their income, or the salary, the wages that they paid their employees, and included then their total wages, including the owners, was $1,293,000 and some change. Okay?
Yes.
$1,293,000. That was in 2009. That was when they started this. This year, 15, it was $1,287,000, which is about $5,000 less than it was when they started. I'm having a problem with that, okay? The wages are less than they were when they started the deal.
Well, I mean, if you're factoring in the owners, they lost one of their owners last year.
Right.
That was a large chunk of their payroll.
Right. Plus, they told us that they had to hire people to replace that person.
Right. They said they've hired 3 people to replace that one person.
So 3 people are making what, 1, that's fine. Whatever, I don't think it, to me, commissioners, and, to me, it doesn't really make any difference. They started with this number, and now they're less than what they were. So when you talk about creating jobs, to me, I have a problem with that, okay? I have a problem with it. I do know that there's lots of people that's having a problem with it. We're here to talk about it. I am an advocate for industry, and I think if they had it, well, we talked about it today, okay? If they had to do it over again, they would probably be figuring out something a little different that wouldn't be based on this jobs and all this talk. I mean, it's almost not worth it to them for all the scrutiny they get. But with all that said, I'm a promoter of industry. They spent $200,000 building their building. Yes, they have some sales tax. What would it have been? You said it was $13,000. The sales tax was $6,900 in sales tax.
Direct sales from purchases made by local businesses,
Right,
yes.
and what would have been if they hadn't done their expansion? It might have been half that, might have been less, we don't know. But to me, the case could be made that they didn't really do what they wanted on the wages, the jobs. They had 30, they're supposed to have 35. They talked about 1 job a year. I looked at the application, all 15 pages of it. I read it for an hour and a half, and yes, it's based on taxes, it's based on wages, it's based on jobs, and to me, you know, they haven't met everything they're going to do, but they did make the investment, and I think, you know, I think it needs an adjustment, you know, is what I think's fair. I think if you vote on it, half the people would want one thing and half would say another, and it's our decision as a body to make a decision, you know, and go on. But I don't think we need to spend a lot of time talking about it, but they haven't made all the criteria, they've made some, but when their wages haven't went up any, to me, you know, that's an issue. You know, it's splitting the baby somewhere here.
I don't know.
I have a question because I'm absolutely confused now. You said there were 4 criteria,
Correct.
and you said they met or exceeded all 4 of those criteria.
Correct.
But now I'm confused by Commissioner Taylor's statement because he said that they didn't meet some of the criteria, but then you tell me that there's 4 criteria and they did meet that. So, I mean,
Well, what,
I can clarify that right quick.
yeah, I'm trying to figure that
Yeah.
out.
The criteria are based on what they provided in the initial application in 2008. They set projections, and they are to meet or exceed those projections. According to the application, according to the Kansas Board of Tax Appeals, that's what they are shown, that's what we have to evaluate.
So and I don't mean to interrupt you, but I need to jump in here. So they need to meet or exceed those 4 criteria.
Correct.
And they
Okay.
have done that.
Based upon that, what you just said, 4 questions. Did they meet or exceed the criteria for the wages?
Yes.
Did they meet or exceed the criteria for the annual sales?
Yes.
Did they meet or exceed the criteria for the local purchases?
Yes.
Did they meet or exceed the criteria for the taxes?
Yes.
Okay, those are the criteria that was set by either this body or the state of Kansas.
Correct.
What more can you ask them to do than meet or exceed the criteria that this body set or the state of Kansas set?
Yes. I would also provide, you know, additional information in reference to what you were saying about why their job numbers haven't changed much. You have to think about history of when they applied for this abatement was in 2008. Then the crash happened, and pretty much every business across the United States drew in. And you can see that in their numbers. If you look at the historical numbers, you can see they have a peak because they'd already had contracts in place in 2009.
And it's fair
But
to
you
say
can
that
see it dip and then come back up.
a good chunk of their business is also in the education sector.
Correct.
Right, that could be
Probably
affected by funding
a
cuts.
good chunk of it, yes. So, and you know what happened with our schools when funding got cut in 2009, 2010. So that explains a lot of why you see
okay,
that
well, let's go
cycle.
back to the wages. The wages have actually went down, and I don't quite understand how that, you know, how that is, Trish. Their wages have went down. Yes, they lost an owner last year, but if you look at the wages, they stayed pretty much the same all through the thing. It really didn't change when they lost their owner. So that, to me, doesn't make any difference. And their wages actually went down $5,000 in the last few years since they started this. So how does that meet the wages criteria?
Because in their application, they stated what their average wage would be, and I have to pull that up, but they have met that, what they said in their projections, what they thought they would be at. They
It
have
was
met
like-
that.
yeah.
It doesn't have to, they don't have to show, I will increase my payroll by 5%. That's not part of the projections. They set a number in their application, and they have to exceed that number.
Well, I have the application here.
So it's
You tell-
not how they get to A to B, it's that they met B.
Correct.
You know, but what it boils down to, we as a board have the obligation to weigh everything out, okay? To see if it's fair for the tax abatement, okay? And is it fair to give them the abatement? Did they meet their criteria?
Yes.
And it's
Yes.
for
Yes.
jobs, it's for jobs, it's for wages, and did they do that?
And I'd like to just say, I think that this conversation, and I don't want to see it do what it did last year by any means, can get off into considering this based on the perception of what's going on here. I would like to clarify that this is an economic development tool that can be used for businesses that would like to grow and expand. It's not something that is offered only solely to for state maintenance.
No, of course not.
I would say any business in town that would be interested in expanding should get a hold of you if they were
Absolutely.
interested in a tax abatement for the same thing. So it is not considered to be a special situation here. The only thing that you can judge something like this on is, as Commissioner Williams said, it's really cut and dry. We set it out, backed up by a review from the state. Did they meet it or did they not? I think those are the only factors that are worth discussing tonight.
I go back, are you done? I'm sorry.
Yes.
Mayor, on page 5 of the application, they put down their average annual salary of a, well, I guess that's a new employee. Maybe that's not, it says new employee.
Right.
Okay, well, I
And
think I'm done with it.
just keep in mind, this is just the first reading of an ordinance. There will be another reading at the next meeting. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
you
this is
will
just
have
the
time
first.
to review again. Yep. Are there
Well,
any?
when we talk about these numbers, you got 30 people now, they got 35. How many part-time, how many not? Their wages haven't went up any. Their numbers might have went up 5 in the few years, but their wages haven't went up. And to me, that's a little bit of an issue, okay? I'll be done with it, okay?
Are there any further?
Yeah, I want to say one thing. I think they're worth helping. They made investment, but I don't think it's worth 100%. Okay? That's all. That's all.
Last year we did 75%, is what you stated.
Right, because you, from what I remember, they believe that 75% of the 4 criteria were met.
And this time 100. I have no problem with whatever percentage you guys want to put out there. If you guys want to do 100, that's fine. If you want to do 80, that's fine, whatever.
They met all their stuff.
Yeah, that's
I mean,
fine.
How do you,
Whatever you guys want to do. But
I don't think so.
how do you beat them up for not?
I don't think so. I really don't.
I don't think that you can set as criteria, and then, I mean, I guess you can. It makes you, in my opinion, strictly my opinion. And you know, the thing is if you change the rules in the middle of the game,
Yeah.
Eventually folks don't want to play with you no more.
Yeah, is this going to deter other people from nothing?
Exactly. So they met the criteria. There's 4 criteria. They met all 4.
And-
I move that we approve ordinance number 16-02
I'll second that.
At 100%?
at 100%.
Motion was made by Commissioner Williams and seconded by Commissioner Castler to approve ordinance number S-16-02 for first reading, and that would be a 100% tax abatement. Mayor Powell.
Aye.
Understood that we were going to have an opportunity to speak when this arose.
You can speak after we are done with this vote.
After he's done,
It won't matter.
I think the guidelines provide that once a motion is made and seconded, if someone from the audience wants to speak, they're supposed to, they're entitled to speak.
All right, go ahead. Sir?
My name is Jim Taylor Senior. I live at 704 Spruce. Tell me when my 3 minutes up, and on this serious matter, that's not quite enough time. I was on the commission when this came before us. The sole consideration on the commission at that time, we were trying to increase the number of jobs in the city. That was the main criteria. We didn't hear anything about sales tax and all these other things until last year. If they're entitled to this kind of an abatement because they bought new vehicles, and now they're trying to say that that sales tax, I contend that they were not local purchases. They had to pay the local sales tax on the automobiles, but I don't think the trucks were purchased here. I've looked over the paperwork they sent, and our city staff is depending on information they gave and certified letters that they signed, but they do not have the documents that justified the numbers they're giving for employees. The employees were supposed to be Coffeyville employees. They are not all Coffeyville employees. All the information that we just heard is information that was submitted without any documentation. You all have decided that if somebody wants to serve on an insignificant board in our city, if they're not here, you will not consider their application to serve. And these people are asking for another $10,000. They've already received $70,000, and they have not provided. When it started, they were going to provide one job per year for 10 years. Hasn't been done. If they're going to put their hand in our pocket for another $10,000, they should be here and represent themselves. This should be tabled until next week. Y'all are being fed a bunch of information from our city manager and his staff that is not truthful. And you have the responsibility to look at the true facts and get some documentation. You're supposed to be serving us and not everybody that comes along and wants to screw us out of our money.
Can we talk a little bit more about this by the rules, Paul? Or?
You can.
Okay.
I looked at the rules, and actually, we did that a little bit in the reverse.
Okay.
Once the presentation is made, the presiding officer then asks if any citizens wish to comment on the item.
Okay.
And then the presiding officer will call for a motion in a second. And
Okay.
There's not supposed to be any further discussion from
Okay.
the public, but you
Okay.
all can certainly discuss it now.
Okay. Well, but, you know, we spent quite a bit of time looking at this day because I knew it was going to be debated, and last year it was debated, okay, quite a bit. I know it was a real struggle again with the mayor and the whole bunch last year, okay? Trish, one of the things that I don't quite understand is the criteria on the jobs. You know, last year, they hadn't added any jobs, right? It was zero.
Right. That's
Okay.
what they reported.
Right. And, you know, then they lost one of the owners and they added some, but the numbers, the employment number was basically the same for all practical matters. I've got the numbers here, but it's basically the same. In 14, it was 1,279,000. In 15, it went up by,
Went up by almost $9,000.
yeah, $8,000, $9,000, okay? And their average wage is 3,600, so it's 36,000, so it's basically the same. I mean, when the numbers are the same when they start and the numbers are the same when they end, they're not adding that much on the wages or the jobs. And that's why I don't think it's worth 100%. You know, fair is fair, you know, and.
Is represented here today, too.
Yeah. There are representatives from Fourth State here today.
Okay, well, they can speak if they want. You know, what's fair is fair, and they didn't really, all they did for giving us the information on the jobs was, they just told you it was 35 jobs versus 30. And if we, I don't know what we would look at, if you looked at the part-time versus the full-time, we talked about that, we'd have no criteria on that, but we did look at this wage number, and we know that's a real number. And they haven't gone up, they've went down. In the last 6, 7 years, the wages have went down, okay? I want to be fair with them, okay? But I want to be fair with the citizens of Coffeyville, too, okay, and the other taxpayers. And I know some of those people. And we just got to be fair. When you go give tax abatements, it's real deal. You know, it's a real deal. And, you know, I talked to Tom and Tim out there today, and he said, we spent an hour and a half talking about this, and we do the $75 million power generation plant, boom, it's done. But when it comes to taxes, and everybody's got to pay, it's a little bit of a hot topic. And I want to be fair to our taxpayers, okay? And we spend money sometimes around here way more liberal than I do, and I'm having a hard time with it, guys. I am having a hard time with it.
Can you please stop pounding on the...
Well, I'm sorry, I'll stop pounding, okay?
Please.
Please start saluting the flag when you do, too. Would you do that?
Okay, how about you... Okay, that has nothing to do with anything right now, so we're moving on. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. Go on.
Go ahead.
Nice little blind sign.
You need to come up.
Charles
Need
Weed,
money on business.
207 West New. The last person I got up here to speak, he talked about all these papers he'd seen and everything. Why didn't he bring them? You know, We hear a lot of people come up here and they talk about, they say seesaw, say this, that, you know, and yet not one of them's bringing a piece of paper up. Says this is what it is. Here it is in black and white. All I'm hearing is a lot of white noise from the peanut gallery. You know, our people want to come up here and say something on an article, and they say they've got the papers. Let them have the papers to prove it. The fact is, if he wants to come up, he can come up next week and lay the papers out so everybody can see it, and not just one little person in a mouse hole. Thank you.
Thank you.
Trish, he stated that it had to be Coffeyville citizens that worked there. Is that true?
Our last census of their employees was, off the top of my head, I think it was over 75% of their employees lived in the city limits of Coffeyville.
But he said that they had hired new Coffeyville employees. Is that?
Right. I wasn't able to figure out the addresses of the last 3 employees. There just wasn't enough time to check on the 3 new ones. They told me that they were local, but I don't have that documentation in front of me.
I believe there's a motion on the floor in a second. It should still be valid.
I'll repeat the motion. We have had one vote already. The motion was made by Commissioner Williams and seconded by Commissioner Castler to approve ordinance number S-16-02 for first reading. Mayor Powell has already voted aye. Commissioner Williams.
Aye.
Commissioner Castler.
Aye.
Commissioner Taylor.
No.
Commissioner Martin.
Aye.
All right, a resolution number R1631, a resolution to execute a small business loan agreement for K-Tan Tanning Salon. Assistant to the city manager, Tricia Perdun, will make comments.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners, again. The Coffeyville Small Business Loan Program has been designed to stimulate economic growth and create jobs that will improve the living conditions of residents in the community. In February of 2015, the Commission passed the economic development incentives, which include a small business development loan program that would typically provide gap financing for eligible businesses and development projects that are not able to receive funding elsewhere. These are targeted at family businesses, small businesses. Businesses receiving these funds will be required to produce a sufficient number of net new jobs, or in the case of business retention, retain existing jobs. They would require to create one job. That's what the statute says, to be clear. The loan is to provide funding for K-Tan Tanning Salon, LLC, for the renovation and opening of a new tanning salon business in downtown Coffeyville, next door to Dirty's Tavern. One of the key factors when evaluating this application is that the funding to be used for this business would be to improve the building itself in downtown Coffeyville. Currently, it's listed on our, it's under code enforcement violations. There's boarded up windows. There's been a fire on one of the exterior doors. There's a garage door where there used to be a door and windows. A majority of the funding that they are requesting would be to remove all of that, put in a new facade, replace windows, and take the building out of code violations. It's a value-added project, renovating the space and facade in downtown Coffeyville that's really fallen into disrepair would not only support the new business, but improve businesses around downtown and provide a permanent update to our buildings in downtown. We did have Yitka Derman of the Midwest CDC and Pittsburgh State University review the full application. She also works with the Southeast Kansas Regional Planning Commission to evaluate the application. It's her recommendation the application not be approved unless borrowers present proof that all real estate taxes are paid and up to date, which right now they are currently past due to an escrow issue with the bank. They would also be required to bring the building up to code with their changes. This would include 2 modes of egress out of the building. They would also be required that Tracy and Kimberly Maxon provide personal guarantees on the loan, and that Dirty's Tavern and K-Tan Tanning Salon are listed as borrowers. So there's more financial protections offered on this loan. It's a 10-year loan at 2.75% interest, which would generate a significant amount of interest actually into our economic development fund if approved. The loan would also be structured with some extra safeguards. We'd have a second mortgage on the property and business of the property at 503. And I don't have it in front of me now. 128 West 9th Street. We've also set up a calculator to make sure that any late payments and interest fees would be paid prior to any payments being credited to the principal. All of these would be put into any sort of loan application or final loan agreement and promissory note for the business. One thing that is really important, and one of the primary goals of this program when it was established in February, is to increase our small businesses, particularly in our downtown, offer services that aren't currently offered in our downtown, and promote retail. This meets those criteria that we set out in that plan. Our fund is set to be a fund where you can't necessarily go get a conventional loan from a bank, and it's supposed to be that gap financing. So it's the intent of the program, therefore it's staff's recommendation that we approve based on the general increase to our value of our downtown in the buildings. I'm open for any questions you might have.
And what do you say about they try to get conventional loans or what?
They, one of the reasons people come to the city of Coffeyville is, one, we offer a reduced interest rate than you can get at a conventional loan, but we are intended to be that gap financing where they can't get a conventional loan for a project like this, whereas the city understands the value to the community more than a private bank might.
Do they try to get conventional banking?
I'm not sure, but the Maxons are here. They could
Okay.
probably answer that question.
I mean,
I have a question before we go to that. Economic status, financial information of third parties is covered by executive session.
Yeah.
And I'd like to look at the financials, and I think that needs to be done, obviously, for the benefit of the third party, done in executive session.
I agree. I have them.
Yeah, I don't want his personal.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want mine either, so.
well, can we talk, can he go ahead and answer our question, or?
I would say we should probably talk amongst ourselves before we discuss anything further.
And I also, so I move that we adjourn to executive session for the discussion of confidential data of third parties, reference financial information, financial
Affairs,
information of third party. Also, I'd also like to discuss in that executive session attorney-client privilege information in reference to this transaction.
I'd say reconvene on or before 7:45.
Do what?
We can have them.
If she's got that information, we've got to. Mr. Maxson. That's fine too. I mean, we've got to be able to answer the questions, have someone answer the questions. Yeah.
I'll second it.
Aye.
Mayor Powell.
Aye.
Commissioner Williams. Aye. Commissioner Martin. Commissioner Taylor.
Aye.
All right, we are now going to reconvene the regular commission meeting. And I believe we did not take any action in executive session. I think we wanted to have some more comments, though, I believe.
Yeah, I think Mr. and Mrs. Maxon wanted to make some comments on their business and explain to you why they feel this is of value to our community. So I'll give them the podium.
Commissioners? K10 is a business we bought in South Coffeyville. It was a building that we didn't own the building, so we had to pay a rental agreement on it. We bought the equipment. Basically, we ran it for a year. It did fairly well. We closed it so we could have our third child, have a little time at home. Getting ready to open it back up, we kind of looked into, well, why are we leasing a building when we own a building downtown that we need to remodel, we need to revamp it and kind of change the appearance of it for downtown Coffeyville. So that's what these funds are intended to do, is get the downtown building looking better. New windows, new front, like we talked about. Basically just a total remodel on that 744 square foot of the front to add another business in downtown Coffeyville.
One question that I have, when do you expect to start this venture? I mean, is this going to be an immediate?
As soon as we have funding, we'll start construction. I look to be right at a month, maybe a little less, to have it open.
Okay.
Tanning season is getting very close. We're getting to prom season, so it is a hurry to get it done. We've got bids for all of the HVAC, the electrical, I've got my bricklayer on standby. We've got already purchased the brick, my doors and windows. The guy, we've already had it all measured. I've just got to call people and say, okay, go, here's your money.
Okay. What I'm trying to establish was just that the loan wasn't going to be accepted, and then like a year and a half later, we started on this deal.
No, it will be done very soon.
Okay.
Even with his work schedule, a month is, with him working at the refinery, a month is a good number. I would really like it open before then, just because, they keep moving prom season up and up, and actually the first prom for this area is the second weekend in April, and so my niece she's on me as well, going, okay, I need to start tanning for prom, and then all of her friends are too, so.
Okay.
All right. Any additional
Thank you, guys.
questions or comments on this?
I don't have any more questions.
All right, I will move to approve Resolution R1631 for adoption.
Second.
Motion was made by Mayor Powell and seconded by Commissioner Martin to approve resolution number R-16-31 for adoption. Commissioner Taylor?
I'm going to say no.
Commissioner Williams?
Aye.
Commissioner Castler?
Aye.
Mayor Powell?
Aye.
Commissioner Martin?
Aye.
All right, we will now have a discussion on downtown traffic lights. Kendall, do you have some comments on that?
Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, it was brought up, I believe, at the last meeting. We were having some issues with the traffic light at 9th and Walnut, and it has been problematic because of the aging wiring underground. The insulation is getting old and falling off, creating dead shorts in our system. Our electric crews have worked on it for quite some time, pulling new wires, and we still continue to have issues. And during our strategic planning session, we also spoke about maybe focusing our efforts a little bit on downtown and what kind of renovations or upgrades we could do downtown. And it was decided that with this issue we needed to just have a little discussion and decide the commissioners' desire on how we would move forward with traffic lights. if it's something that we want to continue to put money into to fix them and get them working, or if we want to look at a different direction. So that's, we're looking for, well, staff is looking for some direction tonight on how we would proceed.
Wouldn't this be a good time with your branding initiative to kind of, I mean, would that play into it, get rid of the lights and maybe?
It would play into it possibly, especially if we did decide to get rid of the traffic signals, then obviously stop signs and other signage would come into play. So a cohesive look downtown would be something we would want to factor into this.
All right. I'd be for getting rid of them, putting up four-way stops. I don't think you're going to hinder traffic.
I provided you last week with the traffic study that had been done in 2014 that addresses it a little bit. However, it does speak to two-way traffic, which obviously we know is not the case down here on some of the streets. But it does say that speed-wise, for the traffic speed, stop signs would be adequate. I've spoken with Chief Bromley, and he would be in favor of doing something like that, four-way stops. And I've also spoken with Chuck Shively and Jim Bradshaw about what our options would be. And we believe that because of sight triangle and vision at some of these intersections, four-way stops would probably be required at all intersections. But what we're looking for tonight is a general direction, then allow us to develop a plan, a recommendation to come back to the commission for your approval at a later date. Obviously, there's some financial aspects that we need to look into. We had a quote, I believe, in 2013 or 14 for stop signs and some new signage to include not only stop signs but street signs in kind of one cohesive unit, and I believe that was around $65,000. We've asked for an updated quote on that same style, just so that we could have an idea what the cost might be.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, down the road, not too far, could we get and I'm not suggesting this because I know it'll cost money, but basically just to answer some questions that I keep getting asked, how much it would be to convert it back to two-way and make the parking like it would need to be. It would be pointless not to have parking if it was going to be two-way. And I was just curious how much that would cost.
Is that not in the study we did? I thought he brought that up.
If it was, I missed it.
Staff can put something together.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not suggesting we do that. I'm just trying to get that information out there.
Okay.
This wiring issue that we're having, explain the wiring issue. It's just the wire's old and brittle and you can't get it to stay on, or what?
It's the insulation around the wiring that has become old and brittle and breaking away, creating dead shorts, bare spots in the wire. It's requiring us to pull new wire in several instances. And Gene might possibly be able to expound on that, but I think, by and large, that's some of the problem.
And before we hear that explanation, where I was going with this is that, is it possible to leave those stoplights where they're at and just simply turn them to flashing red all four directions, which is a four-way stop, which is essentially what we're going to do. We're going to take them down, put up a stop sign.
I think the problem is they keep breaking down.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Is it breaking down that where it's breaking down that it just won't work, period, or is it breaking down that it won't cycle, or?
Right now, the problem is it won't cycle because at 9th and Walnut, it's on flash right now.
Okay, so
but I don't know what the future would be, because the problem is, we can fix it, but if we have to start pulling wire and replacing it, it's in conduit that is metal. And so after 40 years, we don't know if it's rusted out or what, or whether we can even use the same conduit. So if we can even get the cable out and we can't get another cable in there, then we'd have to either saw cut or something to put more conduit in the ground to make the connection between the various intersections. And we can do that, but it would be expensive.
And I understand what you're saying, but today's issue, and I'm trying to make this, I'm trying to get my point across, and I don't know how I'm going to do it. But today's dilemma is they don't cycle.
That one isn't cycling right. And the problem with those lights downtown, there are 9 intersections, and we have 13 intersections with that vintage traffic signal. And in the last 3 years, in all cases except maybe one, all the problems have been with that vintage traffic signal. So we've had, in the last 3 years, we've had pretty much the same amount of call-outs every year after hours, and it's been those.
So if our problem today is it's not cycling, if we put them all to a flashing red, all 4-way stops on all intersections downtown, then at that point our concern doesn't become whether or not it cycles. At that point our concern just becomes keeping it going. You see what I'm saying?
I would agree.
We're today our problem is we got to keep them cycling and we got to keep them going. If we put them just flashing 4-way, and it's a 4-way stop, essentially a stop sign on all intersections down there, and we don't have 2 problems to worry about, we only got 1, and that's keeping power to it. Am I correct?
Mm-hmm. Right now, all the others are cycling. They're all working except this one.
But it doesn't.
But we can keep trying to get it to work. It's just a matter of how much we want to spend.
Well, that's what I'm saying. If they're all on a 4-way, each direction red, your only concern is keeping them, keeping power to them.
Or you have an option of having yellow on the one-way.
Or however,
red.
you catch the idea.
Currently, after hours or whatever, that's how it's set. Some is yellow, some are yellow, and some are red. And I wouldn't recommend that we do that. If they were going to be flashing, we would want them flashing red in both directions.
I would tend to say if we're going to do that, put some 4-way stops in.
Yeah.
What's that going to do for any kind of feeling of the area that you're going to try to put in? It doesn't.
It would detract from the historic quality that I believe downtown has.
The blinking?
I believe the
traffic signals in general.
The 4-way flashing has been tried in the past, and it wasn't very popular with the citizens, and I don't remember the reasons for that. It's probably been 15 years, it seems like, but it has been tried, and it just didn't work very well. Yellow and red. It was yellow and red. I think
that was confusing.
It was. I think that was part of the issue.
By the way, $1.5 million it was in the study. Sorry.
Okay.
This is trivial to the matter, but if we get rid of the signals, what happens to the signal boxes? Because downtown, Inc. has done a great job of painting those and stuff. Do we just keep them up, or?
They could remain. The boxes that you're referring to.
They've done a good job. I don't want to discard them because they have no use. And I say it's trivial. It is trivial, but they've done a good job doing that. I don't want that to go to waste. I would rather have 4-way stop signs and have them look antique, or you and I have talked about some options. Just get a better feel for downtown and make it more historic.
Do you have some comments?
Yeah,
Oh, sorry.
Thank you, Gene.
Tracy Maxon, 3507 West 7th. Being a business owner downtown, we get a lot of comments from people from out of town, and we're open during the evening hours. And they talk about, hey, the streets really roll up around here about 6:30. And tonight, coming to this meeting, I was sitting here at the stoplight waiting for it to turn, and it turned to flashing, so all right, drive on through. But if you've been to downtown Bartlesville, I know they've got Phillips Petroleum and all that really helped renovate their downtown area, but they pulled all their stop signs or stoplights out. They're all four-way stops, and it's a really neat look. It's, it cleans up the street corner. It really dresses everything up, and you can tie your signage in with it, so keep everything kind of historical. But our main concern is just to make it look like Coffeyville's not closed at 6:30, because that's kind of the feel you get. You drive by downtown, all the lights are flashing, you drive right on by. So it's just one of our main concerns, what we would like to see four-way stops.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't think we can afford anything but four-way stops, can we?
I don't know what else there would be.
Roundabouts on every intersection.
Ooh. How much are we saving by getting rid of stoplights? How much money do they suck up a year, you think?
We haven't begun to look at that. We wanted to have this discussion tonight so we could have some direction. If you would allow us some time to put together some options and come back with some of that kind of information as far as what we figure that we spend in electricity. We do have some numbers as to what we spend in maintenance and overtime in a year's time on traffic lights.
It's going to scare you.
I like the idea of the four-way stop signs, but I also think that the four-way flashing stoplights is a relatively quick fix to a situation that, I mean, you're not going to go out tomorrow and buy a whole truckload of stop signs and go put them down there and start hacking the stoplights out. So that's a solution, a quick solution to a problem that's going to be ongoing until we go down there and start knocking street lights or whatever, traffic lights down and putting stop signs up. That was my suggestion. I wasn't trying to suggest that was a permanent solution
Sure.
to the situation, because it's not. But it's a quick fix solution until you can get the permanent solution, and it may be absolutely absurd. I don't know. I'm just talking at this point, I guess.
I think it's fair to say we're receptive to hearing more about it.
Okay. At least by the next meeting, we'll have had an opportunity to discuss four-way flashing reds. That could be the intermediate step if we wanted to move to four-way stop signs, and we'll come back with some ideas.
You might want to split the baby. Experience on, I mean, I don't need to tell you this, but maybe you need to try one, the stop signs, try a couple of them, try a couple of flashing, whatever.
And I think it would be important for us to speak to the people downtown and to the citizens to let them know that what our thoughts going forward would be, and so give us a little time to formulate a plan.
You may get down there and put all these four-way flashing, and it should be everybody stopping on all four corners, and you find out that everybody's crashing into each other on them intersections, and you find out that, hey, maybe we ought to start putting more money into these flashing or these street lights, because people don't, because it's been my experience, there's a lot of folks that just don't drive very well. But, isn't that right, Jim? But you never know.
Okay.
All right, we will now move on to the city manager report.
American Mission. A few things here. First, I want to start by letting you know that staff has made a recommendation that we suspend the dumpsters at the tree dump. And we're estimating that it costs about $1,000 a week to operate that. And citizens already pay for bulky pickup, as well as we have the option for neighborhood dumpsters. And we believe that that money is better utilized in other areas. So February 29th, this is leap year, so February 29th will be the last day that we have dumpsters at the tree dump, and then we are going to start promoting more of the bulky pickup as well as neighborhood dumpsters, and we think that this is a better value. And honestly, citizens are paying for some of the same services twice.
What's the cost of the neighborhood dumpster?
$350, and is there a cost to the neighborhood dumpster?
No,
No?
not to the citizen.
Okay. I wasn't certain, so not to the citizen, no. Again, and that makes sense. It was part of the service that's it's already being paid, for. And so we're going to move in that direction. In that note, we're going to open trash bids tomorrow, I believe, and so we may see some changes in. We've requested some ideas on bulky pickup, so we may see some changes coming forward. But this will allow us to promote that all at one time. I also want to announce that there will be a couple of new businesses opening. Toscana Italian Restaurant is going to be moving in at 315 West 11th Street, and they're expecting a grand opening probably in March. And La Colonial International Foods will be moving into what's commonly referred to as the downtown mall, and that should be opening, if I remember right, possibly today might have been the first day that it was open. It's International Foods. I think they may specialize in Hispanic, like a Hispanic grocery store, and that'll be opening downtown very soon. We do have a new police officer, Dakota Hill, who's just recently started. He will need to go to the academy, and so we will be sending him as soon as we can get a spot open for that. Just a quick update on our municipal projects. City Hall was unanimously approved for the State Historic Register. That meeting was Saturday, and so that makes us eligible for the tax credits that we have been discussing. We have window bids that we will be opening on February 19th. That'll be the first step as we move forward. We've been working with PEC engineers to design our HVAC system at City Hall.
That's the same architecture firm that's been working on the place, right?
They do have previous experience, yes, originally, and that is one of the reasons that we chose them, because of their previous experience with that building. Yes.
Okay, I got you.
And we're still working on acquiring that west property on 11th Street. I spoke with Linda Patton from George Realtors today, and there hadn't been any movement with the owner. And Paul, if I don't know if you can speak to if you have any more information than that, really.
There's still a title issue that the owner actually has a judgment against him, and the judgment creditor is going to an execution sale. So that's going to happen in about as much time as we could exercise our other options, I think. So I think our thought is to just be an interested purchaser at the execution sale.
Does this delay start of construction?
It will not help it, no. And until we can secure it, then that will delay our finalizing the plans for.
Because our plan extends onto that property.
Yes. Okay. Just a reminder that this Thursday, the 11th, we're going to have a public meeting for the Brownfields grants, and you'll be able to hear the plan for the walking biking trail. That's going to be right here in this building from 5 to 8 with a formal presentation from 6:30 to 7. So if you want to come make comments and hear about the master plan for our trail system.
What date was that on?
Thursday, the 11th, this here in 2 days. Yes, correct.
You going to send, and you may have already, but a reminder to the commission?
I will make certain that I do. Now let me make myself a note to remind you.
Some of us need all the reminders they can get, unfortunately.
Okay. Also, we will be submitting a photo for the League of Municipalities Hometown Showdown, and that is a 64-city bracket that is modeled after the NCAA bracket. Essentially, 64 Kansas cities will be presenting a photo, and you will go head-to-head with the person in your bracket, and Facebook likes will decide the winner of each round. And as obviously, so if a lot of people get on Facebook and like our picture, then we will continue to move forward in the competition. And once that, I think there's about 30 cities already that have submitted, and we selected our picture this morning that we will be submitting. And we're as staff, we decided which one we would submit. So when this becomes official, then we'll let everybody know so they can get on Facebook and start liking our picture. And really, it's more bragging rights than anything. And then the winner will be featured on the Kansas Government Journal front page. So that's all I have. We got any questions?
Picture did we submit?
It is a picture of the Interstate Fair and Rodeo that Cindy took, and I'm sure we could make that. We could send that to you to see what it is. But she's already gearing up for next year, so apparently she thinks she's thinking well ahead.
All right, anything else?
No.
All right. Are there comments from any other staff members? All right, final comments from commissioners?
I mean, is that held up with the purchase of property out here? Do we want to think about putting it on the east side? Would that delay, I mean, since all that, we've come up with the east side plan, and we've all accepted that plan, and, talking about a $300 million investment. Is it something we want to do? We talked about it a lot in the past.
We still would not have a site on the east side. We would still have to go through all of that, and the one site that was earmarked to 11th and Spring, I believe, that we thought size-wise it would fit. One of the reasons we chose not to put it there was because of site preparation costs, and it's really the difference in elevations from the west end to the east end. There's significant elevation, as well as some conflicts with some of the large utility lines running down the alley. And I still believe our best option is to kind of wait this out.
I know there was a lot of talk amongst us, and it was divided 3-2, so to speak, to go there. Now we've got this issue, and I didn't know if it might go 3-2 the other way, okay?
Sure.
Okay. Worthy of comment. I do know at one time the refinery said they'd give us some of that property. Now we've got new businesses going on that side of town. It might be weighting that direction. Center of gravity might be moving towards that, might be worthy of some thought.
Any additional comments? All right. I move to adjourn.
Second.